Hi my friend, today we will talk about a fighter like Tony Ferguson. I'll tell you why Tony Ferguson ended and could he handle Khabib at the peak? Let's start, and with you, like and subscribe is the best motivation for me. Tony Ferguson was an athlete from an early age. In high school, he was involved in American football, baseball and freestyle wrestling. Later he wrestled at university, winning the NCWA championship in the category up to 74 kilograms in 2006. After entering MMA, a work ethic was added to physical giftedness. To work with a guy like Ferguson was incredible. We trained for 6.5 hours in a row, and then took a short break. We watched Rocky IV and went for a run at midnight. The guy is amazing. He's just a professor, said ex-UFC fighter Jeremy Stevens. At the same time, Ferguson spent most of his career working independently in his cottage in the mountains, which added complexity to training. I was surprised not only by the time spent on training, but also by the exercises themselves. Somersaults, breakdancing, headstand, working on a punching bag with your eyes closed, more like absurd old-school exercises from Rocky movies. It is unlikely that such exercises are used in large halls like AKA and AT, but in Ferguson's case they really helped. Because such work pumps the vestibular apparatus, which means it improves coordination during knockdowns. There were 3 fights in Ferguson's career in which he quickly recovered from knockouts. The first was against Abel Trujillo in December 2014. Tony already made a classic mistake at the beginning of the fight. He punched a low kick with his hands down and ate the heaviest blow from the right. After that, he immediately stood up, defended himself from a power takedown and continued the fight in the rack. The first round was controlled by Trujillo until there was a minute and a half left before the end of the round. After that, Ferguson turned on the pressure. Trujillo started the second round just as actively, but stopped even faster. Ferguson finished it. A similar scenario was in the battle against Lando Vannata. A year and a half has passed. Ferguson was in 3rd place in the ranking when he was assigned a fight against Michael Chiesa, who was injured. Then Vannata made his UFC debut and looked like an MMA veteran. He showed an excellent footwork and used holes in Ferguson's boxing. Weak bodywork, defenselessness before counterattacks and all the same kicks with his hands down. At the end of the round, Vannata almost knocked out Ferguson, but he escaped on the ground by doing several somersaults. In the second round, Vannata's short training camp and Ferguson's incredible pace and pressure played a role. Tony finished the opponent at the end of the round with his favorite technique, choking Dars. In one of the best fights in the history of the UFC against Anthony Pettis, there was also a recovery of Ferguson after a knockdown. Those same tumbles around the octagon after a perfect hit from Pettis, during which Tony not only walked away from finishing, but also cut his opponent's head. An important point, Pettis coach Duke Roufus made an absolutely accurate hint at halftime, to attack Ferguson at the moment of kick. Pettis performed it exactly, but still did not punish Tony for the eternal mistake. This describes Ferguson well at that time. Everyone saw his shortcomings and inaccuracies, but no one opposed anything for 12 fights. Endurance, strong jaw and unpredictability allowed him to take even lost fights. Long training sessions in the Highlands and a huge arsenal of techniques from various martial arts, including Oriental, made Ferguson a nightmare opponent for any fighter. The first danger is the swing of the arms. 194 centimeters with a height of 180 centimeters is an incredible indicator. For comparison, former light heavyweight and heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier has an arm span of 183 centimeters. Khabib has 177 centimeters. Conor has 188 centimeters. Ferguson skillfully used anthropometry. To control the distance, he used a jab and even a long uppercut. He was so superior to his rivals in the length of his arms. When the strikers shortened the distance and entered a close fight, Ferguson connected his elbows. The fans call my elbow strike from below the crown. It probably is. No one expects to miss such a blow from below. A very insidious movement. The basic component of his work in the rack is kiki. Ferguson kicked from absolutely any position. He used front kicks as jabs for a bunch of punches in combination. He drove his opponents to the net with low kicks, after which he attacked with his elbows. As with the rest of the techniques, Ferguson did not have a well-honed kicking technique. He simply applied them out of timing, out of rhythm, at those moments when the opponent least expected it. Tony created real chaos in the octagon, but was not an unsolvable task for the drummer, as Justin Gaethje showed, while the drummers of that period were ideal rivals for him. One of the best fights in Ferguson's career against Edson Barbosa is the best example. The first round is one of the best in the history of the UFC. Imanari rolls and crazy pressure from Ferguson, roundhouse kicks and bodywork from Barbosa. Tony did what he knew best. He went forward despite the opponent's blows. Barbosa shot back perfectly, revealing all Ferguson's problems in boxing: poor protection from hooks and insufficient bodywork. The problem of Barbosa himself is that he invested very much in blows, spending tons of energy. Ferguson withstood all the hits, perfectly mixing techniques: Imanari rolls, elbows 6 to 12, low kicks, work from below in the stalls. By the end of the round, Barbosa was exhausted. In the second round, Ferguson turned on crazy pressure and already in the first seconds cut the opponent's face with his elbow on the approach. Barbosa continued to shoot back, knocked Ferguson down, but received more damage on the ground than he inflicted himself. By the end of the round, Ferguson ended the fight with Darce. Tony Ferguson is a black belt in BJJ under the leadership of Eddie Bravo and a freestyle wrestler who has won major university competitions. Half of the victories in his famous series were suffocating. It would seem that Tony is a top grappler who really posed a huge threat in the stalls even for Nurmagomedov. This is not quite true. If we focus on dry statistics, then Ferguson has fairly average indicators. He has 67% of protected takedowns. For comparison, Islam Makhachev is now the leader in this indicator. He has 91% of protected takedowns. Khabib has 85%. Conor has 67%, an identical figure to Ferguson. Counter-argument: Ferguson often deliberately assumed the position of guard to attack from below. Yes, his elbows from below were really very dangerous, but submissive, not very. On average, he has one attempt at a painful or suffocating reception in 15 minutes, and now he is not even in the top 10 on this indicator. The leader Charles Oliveira, who often uses the same tactics, has 3 attempts of submission in an average of 15 minutes. Even if you remove Ferguson's last 5 fights, his score will still be less than Oliveira's. Ferguson has an imperfect attacking grappling. 41% of successful takedowns, 0.44 on average per fight, are not the indicators of a wrestler. Then why are there so many finishes with submissives? In most of the fights, he caught already tired and shocked opponents on suffocating. The finish was really impressive only in the fight against Kevin Lee, but even there Ferguson caught Lee on a triangle only in the third round, when the advantage in endurance became significant. It seems that Ferguson, even in the best form, would not have defeated Khabib. Ferguson doesn't have enough fighting skills, and attacking Nurmagomedov from below is very difficult because of his incredible control from above. What's unique about it? His understanding of how to distribute the weight correctly. He knows exactly what position I have to be in to get back on my feet, and he doesn't let me do it. His understanding of grappling is impressive. The best grappling I've ever encountered, Dustin Poirier said about Nurmagomedov. The weak side of Ferguson's jiu-jitsu is the same as the strong side. He is very active on the ground, constantly looking for a chance to come to the reception or attack with elbows. And if against bad grapplers it allows you to inflict damage and threaten with submissives, then against strong ones it leads to a lot of chances for both sides. Chances are not only opportunities to get to the painful or suffocating, but also to get a dominant, controlling position. Khabib never missed such chances. Now Ferguson's physical peak is over. It was a disaster. His style was based on superiority in endurance, pace, reliable jaw and character. Age took it away. The fall began with an injury before UFC 223, which he did not heal and went out to fight Pettis at UFC 229. His mobility noticeably decreased, and the opponent's kicks caused significant damage. There was a similar story in the fight with Cerrone. Gaethje finished the legendary Ferguson series in the style of Tony himself, brutally and bloody. He took advantage of all Ferguson's weaknesses in the stance, was calm and calculating. Trevor Whitman strictly controlled the fight, reminding between rounds that you can't fight Ferguson. If Ferguson from 2017 could turn on a crazy pace and go for Gaethje's punches, try Imanari rolls and other tricks, then Ferguson from 2020 lost all points for superiority. He just missed shots, for each of the numerous mistakes in technique. The percentage of Gaethje hits is 72%. In 4.5 rounds, Ferguson missed 100 blows to the head. Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush revealed Ferguson's shortcomings in grappling, controlling him on the ground for a total of 24 minutes out of 30. Ferguson looked lost. He had never been kept on the ground for so long and hopelessly before. Both Oliveira and Dariush quickly moved into safe positions where Tony could not attack them. Ferguson could not get up from under physically and technically strong grapplers. Michael Chandler broke Tony Ferguson's last strong point, the jaw. The first round of the fight went well for Ferguson, since Chandler is stylistically the most convenient opponent for him. Low, with weak defense and a rack, a small arsenal of attacks and a huge muscle mass. But Chandler executed a blow that he had never performed before. Ferguson's big career ended there, and the fight with Diaz is difficult to consider a duel between two professionals. Friends, that's all I have. In the next issue I will tell you 5 incredible facts about Stipe Miocic. As always, like and subscribe from you. And write everything down. What do you think about today's video in the comments? Wow.